Hey everyone, have you ever felt truly alone, only to realize someone else was already there? What if the man sitting next to you during a school lockdown wasn't supposed to be there at all? And what if the quiet neighbor next door wasn't watching you because you were loud, but because you were the only one who noticed them? Tonight, I'm going to share two true scary stories. One from the dark basement of a high school, the other from the quietest street in a small town. And both, they'll make you double-check every door, every night. Let's begin. Most people say they'd never go back to their old high school. Me? I literally got a job there. I'm Carter, 22, fresh out of college, still figuring things out. When I landed a part-time tech gig at South Pine High, the same school I graduated from 4 years ago, it felt weirdly full circle. My office? Not exactly glamorous. It's in the basement. Not the creepy, cobweb-covered dungeon you're probably imagining, but it's close. The main space is cluttered with old furniture, broken monitors, dusty routers, and filing cabinets no one has opened since 2006. But there's one small, clean office tucked in the back. 3 desks, 2 mini fridges, a flat screen mounted to the wall, and best of all, air conditioning. A luxury no class this place has. It was just me that day. My co-workers, Dave and Gary, were both upstairs helping set up for some standardized testing. I wasn't doing much, just answering emails and eating half of a sad sandwich. That's when my phone buzzed. It was a call from the front office. The voice on the other end was sharp, tight, almost shaking. "Carter, the school's in lockdown. This is not a drill. Turn off the lights, stay quiet, and do not use your phone unless it's an emergency. We'll call when it's clear." Click. No time for questions. I sat there for a second, just staring into space, hoping I'd misheard. But the silence that followed, it was too real, too sudden. The hum of fluorescent lights above me now felt too loud. The walls of that little basement office started to feel like they were closing in. I turned off the lights, the monitor, even the little blue glow from the server tower. Then I sat, alone, in the dark. I had no idea what was going on upstairs. And deep down, I was already afraid. I wasn't the only one down there. Time has a strange way of stretching when you're afraid. Seconds feel like minutes. Every sound feels sharper, closer. Down in that basement, the silence wasn't peaceful. It was loud, oppressive, the kind of quiet that presses on your chest. I kept checking my phone, waiting for an update from the office, from Dave, from anyone. But there was nothing. Just darkness. Then, I heard the door. It creaked, open slow, deliberate. The old metal hinges moaned like something out of a horror movie. My heart jumped into my throat. I froze. Footsteps, soft, uneven, coming down the stairs. Whoever it was wasn't trying to be quiet. They weren't running, but they weren't exactly strolling either. Just a steady rhythm step, 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 echoing off the concrete walls. I ducked under the desk. Every instinct screamed at me to stay hidden, stay small. The footsteps got louder, closer. Then, they stopped. Right outside my office. No door. Just an open archway between me and whoever had come down here. I didn't breathe. I didn't move. My hands were shaking, my back pressed against the cold metal frame of the desk. Then footsteps again. But this time, inside the office, someone had entered. And they weren't saying a word. No flashlight, no cough, just presence. I felt it before I saw anything. The air change got heavier. Then, my phone buzzed. A single notification. The sound wasn't loud, but in that silence, it felt like a fire alarm. I wanted to cry. My fingers fumbled to silence it, but it was too late. The footsteps moved again toward me. I clenched my jaw, waiting for something, anything. And then, from the darkness, a hand grabbed my arm. "Hey," a voice whispered. Calm. Too calm. "It's okay. I'm just hiding too." His grip wasn't rough, but it wasn't friendly either. He crouched next to me under the desk, like we were both just two people stuck in the same terrible situation. "What's going on up there?" he whispered. His voice was steady, too steady. I nodded slowly, trying to process what was happening. "I don't know," I replied, keeping my voice low. "The office called. Said the school's on lockdown. Told me to stay put." He nodded like he already knew. I finally got a better look at him. He was wearing a red flannel button-up, jeans, and a faded cap. Late 30s, maybe. Calm expression, not sweating, not panicked, just still. "I was just here to pick up my kid," he said. "Some teacher told me to hide down here. I didn't know where else to go." Something about his tone didn't sit right. It was too rehearsed, like he'd already played this part before. Still, I nodded. Tried to stay composed. "Do you work here?" he asked. "Sort of," I said. "It assistant. I'm only here a few days a week." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He looked around the dark room slowly, then added, "Is there a way out down here?" That question, the way he asked it like he wasn't looking to escape from danger, but to escape something else. I pointed vaguely toward the back hallway that led to the emergency exit. He fine gesture, but didn't move. My phone buzzed again. I glanced down. It was a message from Dave. "Dude, this is insane. Some guy with a gun shot Mr. Buckley. He's wearing a red shirt and a hat. Don't come upstairs." My blood turned to ice. I looked up. The man noticed. His eyes narrowed. He could tell. Something had shifted. "What's wrong?" he asked. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The silence between us got tighter, like the room itself was shrinking. I thought about screaming, running, fighting, but none of those options felt real. So I asked him, as calmly as I could, "What's your kid's name?" There was a pause. Too long. And then he smiled again. But this time, it was different. "Why do you ask?" That's when I knew. He wasn't hiding from the lockdown. He was the reason for it. For a second, we just stared at each other. Him, crouched under the desk, eyes locked onto mine. Me, frozen, every instinct screaming at me to move now. "You okay?" he asked softly. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I forced a shaky breath. Then I did the only thing I could think of. I ran. I pushed myself backward, out from under the desk, nearly knocking over the office chair. My legs were weak, but adrenaline pulled me forward. I bolted through the archway and into the open basement. Behind me, I heard movement. Not fast, not desperate. Measured. Like he wasn't chasing. Like he was giving me a head start. I reached the hallway, bare concrete walls, low ceilings, and pipes hissing above me. At the far end was the emergency exit. A single steel door with a glowing red exit sign above it. I ran harder. Then a sound behind me. Click. Not a door. Not a footstep. Something metal. Then came the sound I'll never forget. A sharp, deafening crack that tore through the air. A gunshot. It echoed through the basement, bouncing off every wall. Something whined and sparked behind me. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I just kept running. My shoulder slammed into the exit door. I grabbed the handle and yanked it open. Bright light. Voices. Down, down. A blur of uniforms rushed toward me. I dropped to the ground, hands over my head, heart ready to explode. Then the chaos hit. I heard shouting, orders, feet pounding the stairs. Someone pulled me up and dragged me away from the door. I turned my head just enough to see the man in red, standing in the doorway. Still calm, still composed, until he saw the officers. Then he ran. But he didn't get far. They told me I was lucky, that if I'd stayed under that desk 5 seconds longer, things might have ended differently. They told me I was brave, but I didn't feel lucky. And I definitely didn't feel brave. In the days after, the school tried to move on. Counselors came in. Security got tighter. There were assemblies about awareness and safety, and knowing the signs. But nothing really helped. Because there were no signs. Not for me. He just showed up. Mr. Buckley survived. Barely. He doesn't talk about it. No one does. But the rumors? They spread like wildfire. They said the man whose name was Leon Grantust, to work for the school district years ago. Some kind of facilities tech. No one really remembered him. No one noticed when he disappeared. But apparently, he'd been around. Some say he blamed Mr. Buckley for something. Others said he was just looking for a way back in. What shook me the most wasn't the motive. It was that he knew his way around the basement better than I did. He chose to come down there, to find someone, to hide, and for a few terrifying minutes, he chose me. Sometimes I still hear it. The creak of the basement door, the steady footsteps down the stairs, that calm voice in the dark saying, "I'm just hiding too." And I wonder, was he really trying to escape? Or was he just waiting? Was I a witness? Or a backup plan? I check every lock now. Twice. I don't sit with my back to doors. And I never, ever leave my phone volume on silent, because sometimes all it takes is one buzz too loud to change everything. They say the lockdown lasted 37 minutes. But to me, it never really ended. Because you can reopen the school. You can replace the locks. You can repaint the walls and move on. But once someone breaks the boundary between safe and not safe, you can never put it back the same way. Not really. I just graduated college. No roommates, no money, no real plan. Just a shaky job offer in the cheapest house I could find on a rental site. That's how I ended up in Spring Hollow, New Mexico. The neighborhood wasn't great. The walls were thin. The power flickered sometimes. But it was mine. My own place. And that felt like enough. At first, the neighbors on my left blasted music constantly. Classic rock during the day, heavy bass at night. But it was the house on my right that really got under my skin. It was always quiet, too quiet. The lawn was yellow and dead. The windows were always shut. And the front porch had a crooked rocking chair that never moved except when there was no wind at all. 2 women lived there. The older one, Ems. Agnes was cold, sharp, the kind of person who looked like she'd been mad since birth. The younger one, Miranda, was a different story. I don't know exactly what was wrong with her, but she didn't look well. She'd stand outside in the yard for hours, barefoot, rocking back and forth, sometimes muttering to herself, sometimes screaming. Other times, she'd stop whatever she was doing, look straight at my window, and start whispering to Miss Agnes. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I could see the way Agnes would turn to stare at my house. The way her mouth tightened. Like whatever Miranda saw in me, Agnes hated it too. I started keeping the curtains closed, but that didn't help much. I could still feel them watching. I told myself it was just stress, just the adjustment of living alone, just noise, until one night, the noise wasn't outside anymore. It started just past 10 p.m. At first, I thought it was the television from the neighbors on the left, but this sound was different. Screaming, high-pitched, panicked, like someone was being attacked or losing their mind. I turned off my fan. The sound became clearer, coming from the house on the right. Miranda. She was shrieking non-stop, banging on walls, stomping, throwing what sounded like furniture. I pressed my ear to the wall. I could hear her yelling things I couldn't make out. It didn't even sound like words, just raw emotion. Every few seconds, a second voice tried to break through. Firm, tired, angry. Miss Agnes. She was yelling at Miranda to stop it. Calm down. Get back. But Miranda wasn't calming down. I sat frozen on the edge of my bed, unsure what to do. Then I heard glass break. That was enough. I slipped on my shoes and crossed the lawn to their front door. My heart was pounding, and I kept telling myself I was doing the right thing. I knocked. Hard enough to be heard, but not enough to sound aggressive. The door flung open fast, like she'd been standing right behind it. It was Miss Agnes. She looked furious. Her hair was a mess, her eyes sunken, her expression, disgust. "Yes?" she snapped. I took a breath. "Sorry, I live next door. I was wondering if everything's okay." Behind her, I could hear Miranda still screaming, though softer now, like she was pacing. Agnes didn't answer me. She just stared. Then, from the darkness behind her, Miranda charged into the room. Barefoot, wild eyes, fingernails, red maybe paint, maybe not. She was trembling, her arms twitching. And then she saw me. Her eyes locked onto mine. She let out a guttural, almost inhuman growl, and screamed, "How dare you!" She tried to lunge, but Agnes grabbed her by the shoulders and pulled her back. "Go home," Agnes hissed at me. Then she slammed the door. Silence. I stood there in the dark, stunned. My ears were ringing. After a minute, I turned around and walked home slowly. When I shut my own front door, I leaned against it for a while. And then, like someone had flipped a switch, the screaming stopped. Completely. And somehow, that silence was worse. 3:07 a.m. I woke up to the feeling that something wasn't right. There wasn't a sound. Not at first. But I knew. No. The air in the room felt wrong. Heavy. Cold. Still. I sat up, heart already racing. My room was pitch dark. No streetlight. No moon. Just shadow. I reached for my phone on the nightstand, but it wasn't where I left it. Fumbling in the dark, my hand grazed the floor. That's when I heard it. Breathing. Slow. Unsteady. Close. I froze. And then I saw her. Miranda. She was sitting on the floor, right next to my bed, pressed against the wall, knees pulled to her chest, eyes wide, unblinking. Her face barely visible in the dark, but I could see her mouth twitching. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the wall, muttering to it. At first, I thought I was dreaming, that this was some twisted hallucination. But then she turned. Her eyes met mine, and she smiled. Not a friendly smile. Something else. Twisted. That's when she screamed. It was so sudden, so loud, that I threw myself back against the headboard. She kept screaming like a siren shrill, and broken and wild. I scrambled out of bed, tripping over the edge of the blanket, crashing into the dresser. She was still screaming. Still sitting there, not moving. Just watching me. I bolted from the room, slammed the door shut, locked it. Then I heard her get up. Slowly, her footsteps creaked across the floorboards, stopping right on the other side of the door. And then, bang, her fist hit the door. Once, twice, then again, then silence. My breath was shaking. My hands were sweating. I didn't know what to do. She was inside my house, inside my bedroom, and I didn't even know how she got in. I reached for my phone, finally found it under the dresser, called 911 with trembling fingers. As the dispatcher answered, I heard Miranda's voice through the door. Low, faint, and terrifying. "They're watching us," she whispered. "They're already inside." Then came the sound of something dragging down the hallway. And then, nothing. The police arrived in just under 10 minutes. It felt like 10 hours. I sat at the bottom of the stairs, phone clutched to my chest, eyes locked on the door that led to the second floor, the door I had just locked to keep her upstairs. I couldn't hear Miranda anymore. No footsteps, no voice, just silence. When the cops knocked, I practically tore the front door off its hinges. 2 officers stepped inside, eyes sweeping the hallway. I pointed up. "She's upstairs. I don't know how she got in." They exchanged a quick look, then moved fast. One crept up the stairs, hand on his holster. The other stayed with me, asking soft questions I barely heard. I just kept staring at the top of the stairs, waiting for another scream. But none came. A few minutes later, The officer came back down. She's in the bedroom, sitting on the floor, won't speak to us. They called for medical assistance. And then, Miss Agnes showed up. She came from the sidewalk, wrapped in a bathrobe, hair tied back like she just stepped out of a nightmare, but with her eyes wide open. She pushed past me. Where is she? I heard the officer tell her Miranda was safe, but she'd have to be taken in for the night. Agnes's voice changed. First pleading, then icy. She doesn't need to go anywhere. She's fine. She just wanders sometimes. But they weren't listening. They told her it was protocol, that it wasn't her decision anymore. And as they escorted Miranda down the stairs, arms limp at her sides, eyes distant, whispering things that made no sense, Agnes turned. She didn't speak to me, didn't ask what happened. She just looked. One long, hateful stare. The kind of stare that makes your blood run cold. Like I'd betrayed her. Like I'd taken something that was hers. And the truth was, I had no idea what I'd actually done. The officer asked me if I wanted to file a formal report. I hesitated, then said, "Number." It was over, right? Miranda was getting help. Agnes would cool off. And maybe this would be the end of it. The cops drove off. And Miss Agnes? She stood at the edge of her porch, watching, not moving. And as the red and blue lights disappeared into the dark, she slowly turned and went back inside. But 5 minutes later, she came back out, got into her car, and drove off alone. The next morning felt wrong. Not because anything happened, but because nothing did. No police. No noise. No sign that the night before had ever taken place. I looked out the window around 9 a.m. Agnes's house was quiet. Curtains drawn. No movement. And Miranda, she was gone. For a while, that gave me comfort. I thought maybe she was getting help. Maybe Agnes had come to her senses. Maybe that chapter had finally closed. But that was wishful thinking. Around noon, I looked again. Agnes was back. Alone. She stepped out of her car like nothing happened. Like she hadn't screamed at the officers. Like her roommate hadn't broken into my house in the middle of the night. She didn't look at me, but I saw her glance at my window. Just for a second. And that 1 second was enough. That night, I kept all the lights on, locked every door, piled a chair under the knob of my bedroom. I didn't hear any footsteps. No scratching. No voices. But I didn't sleep either, because something was still wrong. I could feel it. Every time I walked past the hallway window, I looked next door, and sometimes the curtain would shift, just slightly. A shape, a shadow, the outline of a face. Watching. 2 days later, Miranda was back. I didn't see her arrive. She just appeared one morning, in the yard, rocking slowly, barefoot. Her hair was tangled, her hands twitching. She wasn't screaming, but she kept looking up at my window, not with fear, not even with anger, but with something else, like she remembered. And every time she looked, I had to wonder, did she actually forget how she got into my house? Or did she remember exactly what she was doing? The worst part? No one talks about it. Not the police. Not Agnes. And definitely not me. Because what am I supposed to say? That the woman next door stared into my soul at 3 a.m. That she sat beside my bed in silence, smiling in the dark? That I'm still afraid to fall asleep in my own house? No one would believe it. But I still double-check every window, every lock, every night. Because Miranda is back. And Miss Agnes, she still hates me. They're quiet now. But that makes it worse. Because it means they're waiting. Sometimes the scariest people don't come from outside. They're already in the room, already in your home, already standing next to you. These weren't stories about monsters. They were stories about people. People who smiled too long, stared too quietly, and got too close. If you enjoyed these stories, hit like and let me know in the comments. Which one chilled you the most? And if you've ever had something happen at school or late at night that still haunts you, I want to hear it. There's more to come. Until then, stay safe, stay alert, and whatever you do, don't ignore the silence.